What's up, guys? Coming at you, a toughness tip of the day. Right before summer baseball is coming up, and I got a special video I'm gonna do here probably tomorrow or the day after for you players in the summer playing summer ball. Took that down with my run. I don't really run for distance, I run for more time, so I just did about 40 minutes, and it was a good one. So sorry if I'm out of breath, but I'm gonna talk about toughness tip of the day is learn how to be a real leader. And I'm gonna do a bunch of leadership ones like I've already done, but this specifically, how to be a real leader, refers to two things that are the biggest misconceptions about being a leader. Number one is that you have to be perfect all the time, because leaders, they're not perfect. They're human just like everybody else. And my sweat's getting in my eyes. And I'm gonna completely talk about my experience just real quickly. People that I work with, people that I'm around, they're in leadership positions and they run, they could run big business, they could run big organizations in general, they could do a lot of things, and they might be a horrible leader, but they might only be in that position just because of who they know or just because of who they are. And just because you see somebody in a leadership position does not automatically mean that they are a leader. And the problem is that these guys are completely unaware of how bad a leader they are. And what I mean is, with the first one about you don't have to be perfect, is these guys are not perfect. The bad leaders never admit that they're wrong. And that is a huge fault. And it makes people like me, the real workers, the real leaders, not respect those guys, because they'll make mistakes. They'll do things wrong. They'll step on the wrong people's toes. They'll do things wrong that affect all of their workers and all the people that are around them. And they think that they're being a leader when they, no. They don't take credit for the mistake, but they take credit for every time something's good happening. They also take credit for other people's successes. But the first step and misconception of being a leader is you're not perfect, but you have to admit that you're wrong. You have to admit when you're wrong. You have to tell your team, tell your workers, tell your players, tell the people that are around you, hey, I made a mistake. I'm going to make mistakes, but I'm going to absolutely do my best and give 100% to prevent those mistakes. And if I do make a mistake, to fix those mistakes. So that's the big thing. Number one is you have got to admit when you're at fault. And number two is communication. And all leaders, the good ones and the bad ones, think they communicate well enough, but it's very easy to see a bad leader and to point out a bad leader because they're horrible at communicating. And especially when you have like a panel or a board that kind of runs leadership, there's multiple people, designated people that have leadership positions, whether it's, in the education system, professional sports, amateur sports, whatever it is, Little League, there's boards that kind of run everybody. And you see it a lot in Little League, obviously, and in sports in general. But they have a huge problem of communication. And they assume that everybody knows things, which as a leader, you should never assume anybody knows anything. And for me, with my business and how I run it, I'm sure that there's parents, with my policies and cancellation policies and, being respectful of my time as well as your own time. People are probably like, man, Laird, I get it. These are your policies. I understand. But I over communicate. So that way we're always on the same page. And my guys and, my girls, they always know what to expect from me. They always know I'm going to give them 100%, but they always know I'm going to communicate with them. And they're always going to know what the rules are, what the standards are, how high the standards are, and what to expect. So these guys that have trouble communicating, they pose as leaders, but they fall short of that leadership position. This doesn't mean that they're bad people. These guys that are falling short of these positions, but the problem is that if they're not willing to learn, if they use things like, well, we've always done it this way, you're going to die as a leader. You're not a leader at all. If you use things where like what I say goes and this is how it's going to be, that's not being a leader. That's trying to be a dictator. You're going to make a lot of enemies that way. And I've always been a leader my whole life. I learned how to be a leader. I'm not going to say it came natural to me. I mean, there's a lot of things that did come natural about being a leader, leading by example specifically. And I'm not perfect by any means either. I make mistakes too. Like I get pissed off and I get on people sometimes harder. But at the end of the day, if I'm getting pissed off and I'm getting on people, it's because I care. And I would say 99% of the people understand that. But the things about being a leader, one thing that you can do right now is take ownership. To prevent these two things is one, over communicate. When you think you've communicated enough, do it some more. And number two is take ownership over every mistake. Because at the end of the day, if you take ownership over everything and say, I could have done better, I could have done this, I could have done that, this was a mistake because I didn't communicate better. This was a mistake because I didn't lay out the standards of what we should expect. Those are the guys that are going to be big time leaders. And those are the guys that run multi-million-dollar businesses, and they're successful in a lot of ventures. Just because you're a millionaire or just because you run a successful business does not necessarily mean you're a great leader. It means you're damn good at something. But everybody can learn and actually adjust and be a guy, you know, be like water, be able to adapt to any situation. As long as you follow those two things. Over communicate, take ownership over everything. Laird's Training, toughness tip of the day. How to be a real leader and the biggest misconceptions about being a leader. See you guys later.